Somebody owes you support payments for child support, alimony support, any other types of financial support, and they pass away, you do not get paid any money whatsoever. Imagine having to go spend another $50,000 if that person that owes you money, your ex-husband, your ex-wife, dies, and you're expecting 20 years of payments until your children reach the age of majority, and you're not going to get it. Understand that it's important to designate who will be the owner of the life insurance, who will be the beneficiaries of the life insurance, as we talked about. Please reach out to a professional and experienced financial advisor with a life license, a life insurance designation for some guidance, and usually at no initial cost.
Welcome to the Just Separated podcast. Hi, I'm Karen Oman, a thanatologist, grief counselor, divorce strategist, and co-author of the Just Separated workbook. I draw on years of personal and professional experience to guide you through the challenges of your divorce. Together, with our expert guests, we'll equip you with the clarity, resilience, and tools to take charge and move forward with confidence. Follow Just Separated and join us as we explore the many different facets of divorce. Welcome to the Just Separated podcast. I'm your host, Karen Oman, co-founder of the Divorce Workshop. Today, we're going to talk about love, loss, and life insurance. What happens if your ex dies? And our expert guest today is Christopher from ProLaunch. Christopher is a proud Canadian and highly experienced entrepreneur at heart. Christopher and his team at ProLaunch help people plan their secure investments, retirement goals, permanent life insurance, objectives, and final affairs with comfort, clarity, and confidentiality. Working with every generation at all stages of life, proven and effective strategies are uniquely planned and executed to guarantee privacy, protection, and performance. Christopher, welcome to the Just Separated podcast.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate you having me on here. Should be a fun chat.
Yeah, it'll be good conversation to have. So I want to start off by saying that most people are surprised to learn that they may need to think about life insurance after divorce, especially if they have children or spousal support payments involved. Why do you think that life insurance gets overlooked, and what do people need to understand about it post-divorce?
That's an excellent question, and it's very common that it is overlooked. I can imagine that it's overlooked due to all the emotions going through everybody at the time of separation, and certainly through divorce, the expenses that come in regards to that, unexpected issues that may arise. So life insurance really isn't the first thing that people think about, but it would be the last thing you would think about if something were to happen. And quite frankly, it's probably the most important thing to think about during the whole process, and we'll discuss some of that today.
Yeah, I remember with my own divorce, it wasn't even brought up much, even in the lawyer's office. You're right. It was just, you have so much heaviness of having to get through everything else. But you didn't even, I think life insurance came up briefly. And I don't know if that's a common thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you said before, there's so many emotions, there's so many else and so much other things to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the reasons to get life insurance or to maintain it? Because some people have it before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can have it for work. You can have it from a whole different ways. You can have different types of life insurance. It's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but as I mentioned earlier, it's a very important thing to consider, especially during that time. Quickly, and to answer your question, would exactly be this reason. If somebody owes you support payments for child support, alimony support, any other types of financial support, and they pass away, you do not get paid any money whatsoever any longer. So if you have 20 years on a marriage, on a separation agreement that is you're expected to be paid for, once again, if that person passes away, it's not going to come to you. Certainly won't come to you tax-free, as life insurance can be. You may have to go through estate lawyers and your divorce lawyers and refight the entire case over. And that is very costly and it's very emotional, and it's not 100% chance of ever getting another dollar out of that out of those support payments that you are owed. So definitely something that's very important, and it is overlooked, unfortunately, but it's not the first thing on everyone's minds when they're going through the process. And with you today, I would like to talk about a few reasons why we should consider that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the reasons. I mean, I told you before about my own story about growing up. My parents divorced. I was 6 months old.
Mhm.
That's a long time to be. And anything we know, life. I'm a thanatologist. I'm a grief counselor. We know life can anyone can die anytime. So. Yeah, I would love to hear some of the reasons on why it's important that people who are just separating or going through divorce really take a look at, at this insurance.
Well, many divorces, I have some notes here to include provisions for alimony and child support. It's common practice to include a stipulation that the supporting spouse should carry a life insurance policy. This is meant to ensure that those support payments continue even if the supporting spouse dies before fulfilling their obligations. Um, it brings us to the word of insurable interest, and we will have you know, some legal jargon. It sounds like today. I'm not a lawyer myself, but I do deal with them in the estates side of life insurance, and also when clients, such as clients we have at ProLaunch, come from blended families and they're separated, they're divorced. Um, they have to understand the word insurable interest. You must show that there is some type of financial dependency that would leave the other party financially suffering, including children, should one of you die. Again, an insurable interest is the financial stake that someone has in the life of another person, whether you're married or not. And that is what's so important about having life insurance contract or policy at the in the separation and divorce stages. Uh, and by having that insurable interest that, as I mentioned, could be children, you can guarantee that those children will receive payment for those 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever you want. Maybe it's a lifetime policy, but that can secure money for those in need. And that is the term of insurable interest on a life insurance contract.
Does that have to be like legally put in? Is that is that an insurable that is, yeah, because I've never really heard of that term until I looked it up yesterday. So that's a very important thing to know, right?
Yes, and many judges will actually make that part of the insurance, the part of the separation agreement when it goes to divorce court and you get everything sorted. If it goes to that stage, these are areas in which they do look at. If your lawyer has arranged child support or alimony payments, but the supporting ex dies, right? Whether you make more money of them or not, those extra payments would immediately stop. So then you have to go back, as I mentioned, and refight the entire process over again, which costs quite a bit of money, quite a bit of emotions, and quite a bit of time. If you had a life insurance contract in place and that person were to pass, that money would flow directly to the beneficiaries, which can be the insurable interest, the children, maybe it's the spouse, maybe it's half and half. However you want to set it up, you do that with a licensed insurance advisor to make sure that that money is guaranteed to you whether something happens. And it's not just money that can be used for living expenses. It can be if you owned a home together and someone passes away, if you have an education to fund, right? If you have final expenses, if you are leaving a gift of insurance, a gift of inheritance to certain family members, the list goes on. Car payments, other debts. Um, and the interesting thing, Karen, to know about this whole thing is that some premiums that are paid into a life insurance policy may also be tax deductible under certain situations. A smart accountant, a knowledgeable financial advisor can certainly help you with that as well.
Yeah, I want to ask about, so if they've already had the life insurance, whether it's whole or term, which you can mention briefly about the differences, um, is it generally carried on, or do they can change that, right? Because can they change the beneficiaries? Like, can it be like, okay,
Hmm.
um, we're divorcing, my wife is on the beneficiary, but I would really just like the children on it?
Hmm.
Or because of child support, that she's still on it, but the kids are on it? Like it, I know this is a huge, it's confusing and stuff, but,
Hmm.
or would it be recommended that they get a new one um, because of the divorce? Or is it both?
Well, those are great questions, and I'll give you the best answers as I can. Um, yes and no. So I'm going to explain the yes. The yes means the beneficiaries can be changed at any time if you have an existing policy, even if you make a new policy. And I don't want to throw too much insurance or legal jargon out to your listeners. However, there's a term called revocable and a term called irrevocable beneficiaries. And revocable means exactly what you were saying. It can be changed at any time. So the policy owner can be the person who took out the policy, and the beneficiary can be changed at any time by the policy owner. That means revocable. Irrevocable means that the policy owner, okay, cannot change the beneficiaries without the beneficiaries' signatures. That's irrevocable. So if you were to take a life insurance policy out on your ex wife, for example, all right, someone was going to take their life insurance policy out on their ex wife. What they could do is use their ex wife as the beneficiary, 50%, and they can have their children at 50%. If you make it revocable, you can change those beneficiaries at any time, whether you get remarried or you have a new life partner, whatever it can be. They would never know. The beneficiaries would never know. But if it's irrevocable, you cannot change those beneficiaries without the beneficiaries knowing and agreeing to it in writing.
Okay, so would it be the best interest to, when it comes to having a young family or children, to have irrevocable? Or
Usually, yes. Usually, yes. You would make sure that the beneficiaries were in there as irrevocable, so nothing in the policy can be changed. So if there's remarriages down the road, down the line, that policy will stay intact, even if beneficiaries and decisions are made after the fact. And also keep in mind that a life insurance policy supersedes a will. So a court will ask for all life insurance policies if someone were to die way before they would even ask to see if there's a will, because the Life Insurance Act once again supersedes will and estates. Very important stuff. They can change their will. They don't even have to have a will, and we'll talk about that in a bit too, if we can. Um, but a life insurance policy is the true will of somebody's um, decisions that they want to leave in their life. And it cannot be overturned. Creditors cannot get access to it. There's a lot of advantages that life insurance carries, whether you're married or you're not, or you're separated or you're divorced. So you're single. Uh, the list goes on, and the advantages are there. It's just how do you explore them, and what direction do you go with that? We have different types of life insurance policies. We have term policies, which is also called temporary. So a term policy, usually from work, it's a 20-year term, 30-year term, whatever it may be. Most are 20 years. It's called a T20. What happens is that that money is guaranteed for 20 years. Let's say a $100,000 life insurance policy for 20 years, but on the 21st year, it were to expire unless you pay an additional premium to have it continue. And those additional premiums can be quite expensive at the 21st year, right? So whole life policy is another one, and that allows somebody to have insurance for the rest of their life, but that's why it's called whole life. However, it's also called permanent insurance. However, it's much more expensive than a term or a temporary policy. So once again, at work, you usually have life insurance given to you. It's great. Here you are, you're insured, but it's not usually for a lot more than $50 or $100,000, and it does expire, and it actually gets more expensive every time you get paid. You may see that come off your paycheck. With a licensed independent life insurance is what we do. That 20 years, a T20, never gets more expensive until the 21st year. So something to consider when you're looking and shopping around for life insurance policies as well. I just wanted to throw that in there to give some clarification.
So, whole life, you explained well. So, if you're going through separation and you're the payer,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming, now you can tell me, you're the expert, that you'd probably pick term because, right? So, say you have like the scenario, say you have a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and depending how long, because honestly, with kids today, they don't leave the house at 18 as much anymore. Like they're back and forth and back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So you can arrange for 20-year term, so that 5-year-old will be 25, or 15-year term. Um, I'm assuming that the payer would prefer just the term for the child support situation. And then if they want to, they would leave a whole life for their children only. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can they do that? And is that what you've seen?
Yes, definitely. We have a saying here in life insurance, the younger you start, the cheaper it is, and the more you get, right? And with term insurance, it's much cheaper than whole life insurance, permanent insurance. So that would be a strategy. You could have a term 20 for 20 years. Yes, that expires for the ex-spouse, for example, that expires after the 20-year mark is up. Yes, you could do that. And you could have whole life insurance for the children for the rest of their life. And you only have to actually pay for, if you set it up this way, a 20-year pay on a whole life policy. Instead of like a term, it gets more expensive on the 21st year. On a whole life, you never pay another premium again, and you have insurance for the rest of your life. It's more expensive at the beginning, but it also acts as an investment as well. It's not just life insurance. Everyone thinks life insurance, that's great, but I want it while I'm living, not when I'm dead. It's no good to me dead. Well, it's not for you, it's for somebody else. But whole life can be for you because you can actually cash that out if you wish at any time, but it's worth what it is at 20 years. So if it's a 20-year whole life policy paid up in 20 years, even though it's for the rest of your life, you can actually take cash out if you wish at the 20-year mark or any time before that. It's just not as worth as much. That's why they call it paid up life insurance policy. And like I said, there's a lot of terms, a lot of nuances. There's a lot of different jargon that we talk about in this business. But if you speak with somebody who understands your unique situation, they can probably clarify these terms much easier than just searching and Googling around yourself on the internet. AI is great, but sometimes a human being can help you a little quicker and more effectively.
So a question I have is who pays for it? Now I knew this is a big question, right? Because, and I also want to follow up that, say you have a more challenging, high conflict type of relationship, how do you know that the payer is paying, or you know what I mean? Because, so it's a loaded question. So, first of all, who pays, like who in general? If
Mm-hmm.
I know every situation is going to be unique and different, but in your experience, who pays for the insurance?
Well, if it's an amicable decision amongst people who separate, what you could do is structure it that one um, one person or both of you can do that as well, pay into a policy. It can be part of your separation agreement. It can be something that you just personally do amongst each other without lawyers. Whatever, it's fine. But to answer your question, how do you guarantee that they'll pay those premiums? You cannot guarantee they'll pay those premiums. That's how life insurance works. You hope that they'll pay those premiums unless it's stipulated in an agreement, a separation and divorce agreement, to state that they'll pay those premiums for 20 years as part of the part of the separation um, agreement or divorce agreement in full. That would be the only way you can guarantee that they'll pay those. Uh, but it's a good start, and it's something that is very important when you're dealing with emotions and people's betterment of what they want to do moving on in their relationship. Um, Whether you have children or you don't have children, it's important to understand that the, we do have to take care of one another. Emotions aside, it's important to take care of what you own and what you owe. And a great way to do that is through life insurance. And it would be great if people can get along in order to develop a policy. Some don't want to be insured for whatever reason. That just happens, right? And you have to understand that. So if you're going to take life insurance on somebody, and this is why I brought up insurable interest earlier, they have to know that you're taking out life insurance on them, and they do not have to agree to that if they don't want to. So you're I guess you're back on square one. But if it's amicable, and if you do have children involved, most people want the best for their children. And to structure it that the children are the beneficiaries, usually we'll have an agreement on all sides. But then again, humans are emotional creatures. We can only do what we can do. But it's important to get somebody who's a good negotiator on your team, who may also be a life insurance agent, and they could do a lot of negotiating of why, as a couple, it makes sense to go down this route and make sure everyone is taken care of. And it may even make your separation agreement more equitable as well, because that's what we're looking for at the end of the day, an equitable breakup, right? And so we can all move on with our lives. And that's where life insurance comes in. And it allows you to have that equitable opportunity to move forward.
It also decreases uncertainty and anxiety,
Of course it does.
right? Especially if you have, children and they're not young adults, right? So having that kind of can help maybe decrease some of that anxiety, reduce the emotional blame game or the fight,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
in general is the do judges, I know you're not a lawyer, but I know you've worked with lawyers. Do they like that separation agreements have these in them? Like, are they encouraging that? Like, is that encouraged?
Well, it's a lawyer is not licensed to sell life insurance, at least the ones that I've met. So there's no real business in them to say, let's go find another expense for you while we're doing this, right? Because it usually isn't something that people are raring to go for. Let's go and make sure this is more expensive for me going through this divorce. But remember, it's probably the most or the least expense of the expenses that you're going to have, because of what can happen if you don't have life insurance. So, do lawyers make sure that you have life insurance? No, that's not their business. Their business is not to make sure you have life insurance. It's your business to make sure that you have life insurance so you can take care of those that you love. And that's your answer right there. Um, I I find that the best way to take care of yourself and the ones that you love is to make sure that you receive a you know advice that you know is important not only for you but for the future generations that are in your family as well, but objectable advice as well. So it's not just what you want to hear and here, let's sign and let's make some money together. It's what is the best for everyone involved. And sometimes during the situation of divorce, people just want to get it done. They're done. They just want to move on with their life. They sign all these forms, they spend all this money, and they just want to move on. I get it. I 100% get it. And I know why, right? I totally know why they would feel that way. But don't overlook the most important part is the risk that you take when you don't take care of those that you love. That's very important. And in my opinion, something that should be discussed at every single meeting that a divorce lawyer has their clients attend, or family lawyer has their clients attend.
Yeah, I think that's why I want to have you on, Chris, because um, as you said, the lawyer, they do their job, but they don't even bring up much of the life insurance and how vitally important it could be for so many of those separating families.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So
And
I think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, I just wanted to maybe throw a little humor in here if we can. I like to keep it fun because it's serious stuff. This is from a divorce lawyer, by the way. You know why divorces are so expensive? Because they're worth it. And that's Willie Nelson is quoted saying that. And it goes apart what you're saying, Karen, is exactly that. They don't always bring it up because it's more expensive to bring it up. Yes. But isn't a lawyer at $300 to $400 an hour expensive already? And if you do $10,000 in legal expenses getting out of your divorce, that can happen, if not more. A life insurance policy at maybe $50 to $100 a month is expensive, or $1,000 a year is expensive. Imagine having to go spend another $50,000 if that person that owes you money, your ex-husband, your ex-wife, dies, and you're expecting 20 years of payments until your children reach the age of majority, and you're not going to get it, but you did spend 10 grand getting divorced. It's certainly something to think about. We have to make sure that we do have at least the the education of having life insurance as an option while we are considering separation and divorce.
I'm also thinking, I'm wondering in the separation agreement if they offer, say, a term of 20 years. I wonder if they can negotiate that to kind of maybe reduce something else. Like it could be all, you know what I mean? Like I'm just saying,
Of course it can.
right? Like if you're in mediation, or you're both lawyers are working well together and you're not in a high conflict. I'm wondering if they could say, okay, they'll put out a 20-year term life insurance if you can decrease this a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I'm a, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying, I'm just thinking that numbers could be, changed around or worked around for that as well. So I'm thinking that happens.
Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, negotiation with someone who knows how to negotiate is extremely important. It's not just your lawyer who needs to negotiate. Maybe it's your financial advisor, your licensed life insurance agent as well. Not all financial advisors, it's a fancy title and everyone uses it, but not everyone has a license to sell life insurance behind the term financial advisor. So keep that in mind as well. And some of them can be very good negotiators. I know many of them from Toronto up to Thunder Bay do an exceptional job. Some of them are with ProLaunch, and they do an exceptional job when they're dealing with blended families, separations, divorce, multifamily situations. And having that extra person on your team, and there's usually no cost to have that person on your team. We don't bill by the hour in this business. At least I don't. Okay. We make sure that we place policies with people for things that matter, and that's how we get paid. And it's no extra money that goes to us. Carriers pay us. It doesn't even come from the client. So keep that in mind too. It's not expensive to get objective advice from a life insurance agent, an independent life insurance agent, um, when you're going through the process. Lawyers do a great job. They really do, but they're not the end all, and they're certainly not the final outcome of what's going to happen. So you're absolutely right, Karen. Being able to negotiate a bit better on your settlement because there's a life insurance policy involved could make all the difference. Yes.
Yeah, this is such an important conversation. And I think the other thing is just be aware that you can, like, you can talk to your lawyer about it, but they could actually call you, Chris, during the divorce proceedings or the
Yeah, yeah,
negotiation, say,
yeah.
Chris, I'm thinking about, right? And that's objective, independent counsel
Hmm.
that the person who's divorcing can actually bring up. It doesn't have to be, you know, the other ex-spouse has to be in on it yet, right? They can
No.
just start talking to you or
Hmm.
any license insurance to
Hmm.
talk about this.
Of course, you could always get independent advice. You can go to people's websites. We have a website, ProLaunch.ca. It's completely free. You can go on there. You can do a search on everything that I've discussed today, practically, and you'll find a lot more. And it's written objectively as well. It's not salesy. It's to give you information that you need. It's called freemium advice, right? It gives you information that you may need to take the next step to better your decision making. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really. Is there any before we wrap up? Is there any like stories? Like, is there any, where a situation where you went, wow, this was tough. If like I'm thinking about, I go back to my mom all the time, and my, you know, that I'm sure there's stories out there of people that never knew this information or didn't know about it, and their spouse dies, their ex-spouse dies, and there is nothing. And
Hmm.
that's the story why we're talking about today, because we don't want that to happen.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I would never give names of clients, but I
Mm-mm.
have had some clients in the industry of fire protection, let's say, who are going through a divorce. They did have a life policy set up, thankfully, with their partner, and they did pass away. Um, so everything that was done with the lawyers ended up being nil because it didn't matter. The person passed, and once the person passes, any agreements that you have pass with them, except the life insurance policy. And the life insurance policy was enough to take care of the children and her for the next 20 years, and it was a substantial amount. But they actually did that when they were thinking about getting separated, which is which is absolutely amazing because it's never a topic that usually is thought about, right? Everyone wants to take care of their own interests, and I understand why, 100%. But because they were thinking that way, it was a, a, a very, I would say, um, a very good decision on unfortunately, the gentleman passed, one of my clients, but it was a very good decision that was made, even during a time of heartbreak and pain and emotional suffering. He did make that decision, and it ended up working out for the family in the end. There's a lot of stories where things don't work out. Unfortunately, people come to me directly when they need insurance, whether, I can't really help them at that moment. It's when you don't need it, you should actually be asking someone for objective advice.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I just want people to hear that. That's an important story to hear.
Hmm.
So, did you? Is there anything that we left out today in this topic before I ask my last question?
No, I think, you know, people should understand that it's important to designate who will be the owner of the life insurance, who will be the beneficiaries of the life insurance, as we talked about. But also feel free to shop around for advice. I keep bringing up the term objective advice. It's important. There's different prices, there's different options, and there's much different coverages that you can ever expect. A client approached me once at a meeting. Right at the end of the meeting, he said, "Wow, Chris, there's a lot more to life insurance than just life insurance." You know? And it's something to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's very accurate. It's a lot. Like, we only had a half hour today, and I'm sure I could have you back on because there's still a lot more to learn. So I asked this about with everyone that comes on the podcast. For someone who's just separated, whether they left or were left, what advice would you give them to help them navigate those overwhelming early days?
Thanks, Karen. Great question. I did have it prepared, my answer. So I'll make sure I don't miss a word. But remain as calm as possible and understand that there's always a storm before the sunshine. Flowers need rain to grow, right? So seasons change and people do too. Getting your financials in order is extremely important, as you may still have obligations to each other. Lawyers are a good start, even expensive, but they also cannot help you completely. Please reach out to a professional and experienced financial advisor with a life license, a life insurance designation for some guidance, and usually at no initial cost. Keep in mind that life insurance, as I mentioned, supersedes anything written down in a will. This simply means that beneficiaries can be guaranteed and not overwritten in an updated will. Make sure that you and your dependents are protected and clearly understand the full financial situation. And that's what I would probably conclude today's discussion about. I was going to get into the will stuff. And when people die, they think, oh, I don't have a will. Nobody would know. You actually have a will. It's the Ontario Succession Law Act prescribes a will for everyone who dies. Whether you have one or not, you actually have a will when you die. The government makes sure you have a will when you die. And we can talk about more of that stuff later. But remember, life insurance comes before the will. So if someone updates their will, it doesn't mean anything if you have a life insurance contract in place. A life insurance contract, I'm going to say it again because it's very important, supersedes a will. So a life insurance is taken care of first, and then anything that they wrote down in the will or changed it or made different beneficiaries comes after the fact. That's why it's very, very important to consider life insurance during this important stage of your life.
Yeah, should they also, if anyone's listening cross country or in the States, check with their state and province to make sure that's the same? I'm not sure, because it seems to me that every province could be slightly different and every state is slightly different. Or
Yeah, this would be in the province of Ontario.
Ontario. So anyone else listening, just make sure you check. But this was such valuable information, Chris. I think what you brought here was just a huge amount of awareness of the importance that often goes overlooked. So I really appreciate you coming on and explaining this to all of us.
Yeah, we could talk about this for hours, but it's sometimes a morbid topic for a lot of people. It's not the most exciting topic in the world, and I completely get it. That's why I have the humor that I have in order to make this work and understandable for most people. But it was my delight to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Karen, and I would be happy to have another chat with you and your audience at a later time.
Yes, and sorry to ask, where can they get in touch with you, Chris?
Certainly. It's C. Blueman, C-B-L-U-E-M-A-N, Chris Blueman. So C. Blueman at ProLaunch.ca is my email. You can also go to our website at ProLaunch, P-R-O-L-A-U-N-C-H, ProLaunch.ca. That's ProLaunch.ca. And you can find all our information, phone numbers, everything else is on there. And if you're living in another province or another area of Ontario that isn't from Toronto to Thunder Bay, we can definitely set you up with somebody in your local area that will be able to help you out as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you for joining today's discussion with our divorce expert. Check out the show notes for more about our guest. If you're finding value in our podcast, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel at Divorce Workshop. Share your questions, comments, or guest suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. For a comprehensive divorce guide, check out our Just Separated workbook on Amazon worldwide. This workbook covers everything from emotions and co-parenting to finances, legal insights, and recovery, a must-have for anyone navigating separation or divorce.